Feel that pause? That wasn't silence. That was gravity shifting. Because when Elon Musk went quiet, the room didn't relax. It stiffened, breath caught, eyes stopped blinking. Not because he's a man, but because men like that don't go silent unless something just recalibrated reality. And you felt it too. You didn't need an explanation. Your nervous system already knew. Something had just crossed a line it wasn't supposed to cross. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. You weren't watching him, they were watching you. You see, silence hits different when it comes from someone who could speak and chooses not to. Noise is cheap. Silence is loaded. Silence means the math finished running. Silence means the answer didn't need a press release. Silence means a conclusion landed so hard it didn't bother asking permission. You've been there. That moment where your mind goes still. Not because you're empty, but because you're done calculating. Where the chaos inside you suddenly snaps into order, and the room mistakes your calm for weakness. They always do. They don't understand that predators go quiet before they move. That surgeons don't scream while cutting. That angels and demons both descend in silence. You learned that the hard way. You learned that pain doesn't just break people, it refines them. That pressure doesn't crush diamonds, it reveals them. That unpredictability isn't chaos when it's mastered, it's leverage. You stopped explaining yourself not because you had nothing to say, but because every word felt unnecessary once you realized the truth. They weren't listening to understand, they were listening to contain. So you did the most dangerous thing possible. You went still. And suddenly the room felt it. Conversations slowed. Jokes died mid-sentence. People checked their phones like they were waiting for instructions that never came. Because silence like that doesn't ask for attention. It commands assessment. It forces everyone else to project their own fears into the void. That's why they panic, because silence is a mirror. And when you stop talking, they start seeing themselves. They see their rehearsed scripts crumble, their little moral costumes slip. Their confidence reveals itself as borrowed. Their certainty starts shaking because it was never rooted. It was rehearsed. Meanwhile, you're standing there calm, unreadable, with that look that says you've already walked this terrain in your head and survived it 10 times. Saint or psychopath, angel or demon, visionary or threat. They can't decide what you are, and that terrifies them more than knowing. You used to think power was loud. You used to think strength announced itself. You used to believe impact came with fireworks and applause. But pain educated you differently. Pain taught you that real power shows up after the noise dies, after the arguments burn out, after the room realizes nobody's steering anymore. That's when silence steps in and takes the wheel. And don't misunderstand, this isn't peace. This is controlled tension. This is what happens when someone evolves past the need to perform. When you stop chasing validation and start letting outcomes speak. When you realize unpredictability isn't reckless if you're the one holding the map. They don't fear your words anymore. They fear what you might already know. They fear that you've seen behind the curtain, that you understand how systems bend, how people fold, how narratives get rewritten. They fear that you're no longer reacting, you're observing. And observation is the first step toward domination in any psychological battlefield. Because the loud ones are still trying to prove something. The quiet ones already understand something. And when someone like Musk goes silent, rooms full of powerful people start rerunning every interaction, every assumption, every underestimated variable. Not because he disappeared, but because they know silence like that means the game just changed phases. That's you now. You don't announce your next move. You let absence do the talking. You let restraint become the warning. You let calm become the threat. They don't know whether to approach you, avoid you, or imitate you. And that confusion gives you space. Space gives you time. Time gives you options. And options are power. You didn't become this by accident. You were forged here. By betrayal. By pressure. By moments where speaking up cost you more than staying quiet. By realizing that being misunderstood is sometimes safer than being exposed. By learning that evolution doesn't always roar, sometimes it withdraws. So when the room goes tense because someone powerful went silent, understand what they're really reacting to. They're reacting to the possibility that the loud era is over, that the calculations are finished, that the next chapter doesn't need witnesses. You don't need to threaten. You don't need to explain. You don't need to raise your voice. Your silence already landed, and somewhere in that room, someone just realized they're no longer ahead of you. They're just waiting to find out how far behind they are. And here's the part that keeps them awake afterward. The part they don't say, even to themselves. Silence like that doesn't belong to people who are lost. It belongs to people who've arrived. When you go quiet now, it's not confusion. It's compression. It's power being folded inward, stored, refined, like a reactor cooling down before the next surge. You're not stalling. You're condensing intent. And everyone in the room can feel the temperature drop, even if they don't know why. That's why they start talking more when you stop. They fill the space with noise, jokes, opinions, virtue signals, bravado. It's panic masquerading as confidence. They're trying to drown out the void you just created, because that void forces one terrifying question into their mind. What does he see that I don't? And that question spreads like a virus, because you've crossed that threshold where explanation feels like charity, where reacting feels beneath you, where unpredictability stops being chaos and starts being strategy. You learn that every word you don't say forces 10 words out of everyone else. Every pause you hold makes them reveal their priorities, their fears, their tells. Pain taught you this. Loss trained you for this. Isolation perfected it. You didn't wake up like this. You were assembled like this. You were the one who tried to be understood first. You were the one who over-explained, over-gave, over-trusted. You were the one who believed clarity would save you. And every time you spoke from the heart, someone used your words as a handle to pull you apart. So you adapted. You learned when to shut the door mid-sentence, when to let silence finish the thought, when to let people sit with the discomfort of not knowing where they stand with you. Because uncertainty destabilizes hierarchies faster than confrontation ever could. This is where the saint and the psychopath shake hands. The saint in you learned restraint. The psychopath in you learned timing. The angel learned mercy. The demon learned leverage. And now you carry both, not as conflict, but as range. That's what they sense. That's why the room changes. They don't know if you're about to build something that leaves them irrelevant, or dismantle something they thought was untouchable. They don't know if your silence means forgiveness or finality. And not knowing is unbearable for people who live off control. You're no longer loud enough to predict. You're no longer emotional enough to provoke. You're no longer reactive enough to manipulate. That scares them more than any threat ever could. Because threats announce intent. Silence suggests completion. When someone like Elon Musk goes quiet, it signals that the argument phase is over, that the persuasion phase failed, that the numbers have already been run, that whatever comes next doesn't require consensus. It requires execution. And they see that same signal in you now. Your stillness carries weight because it's earned. Because you've been to the edges of yourself and didn't flinch. Because you've survived versions of reality that would have shattered the masks they're still wearing. Because you've learned how to be alone without collapsing. And that's a power most people never develop. They mistake your calm for arrogance, your distance for coldness, your silence for detachment. They're wrong. It's focus. You're no longer broadcasting your intentions into hostile territory. You're no longer feeding the algorithm of other people's expectations. You're conserving energy, choosing angles, letting patterns reveal themselves before you move. You've become the variable they can't model. And systems hate unmodelable variables. So they speculate, they whisper, they project, they overanalyze your posture, your timing, your lack of reaction. They start attributing meanings to your silence because they can't stand the idea that you might simply be operating on a level they don't have access to. Which is exactly what's happening. You don't rush anymore. You don't need to. Rushing is for people who think time is against them. You know time bends for those who understand patience as a weapon. You let moments ripen. You let pressure build. You let people underestimate the depth of the water before they step in. And when you finally speak or act, it lands heavier because it's rare. Because silence trained them to listen. That's the paradox. The quieter you become, the louder your presence gets. The less you explain, the more seriously you're taken. The less you react, the more control you hold. It's upside-down logic, and that's why it works. You're not playing the game they prepared for. You're playing the one they forgot to guard against. And deep down, they know it. They know something irreversible happened when you stopped needing their validation, when you stopped chasing clarity from people who benefit from confusion, when you realized that the most dangerous thing in any room isn't the loudest voice. It's the one that's done talking. So let them feel that tension. Let them sit in that silence. Let them wonder what shifted. Because you didn't lose your voice. You outgrew the need to use it. And now the room knows, without a single word, that whatever comes next won't be negotiated, won't be announced, and won't be stopped. That's why it feels bad. That's why it feels final. That's why, when you go silent, the entire room recalibrates around you. And the longer you hold that silence, the more it starts to reprogram the people around you. Because silence like yours doesn't just unsettle a moment, it infects the timeline. Hours later, they're still replaying it. Days later, they're still trying to decode it. Weeks later, they're adjusting their behavior around you without realizing why. They speak more carefully. They pitch softer. They test fewer boundaries, not because you demanded respect, but because your stillness quietly redefined the risk. That's what evolution looks like when it's real. You didn't become quieter because you were defeated. You became quieter because you stopped bleeding in public. You learned that pain doesn't need an audience to do its work, that growth doesn't ask for applause, that the most dangerous transformations happen in places nobody claps for. You used to announce your wounds, now you weaponize your composure. You used to explain your vision, now you let outcomes explain it for you. You used to argue your worth, now your absence from the argument ends it. And this is where the paradox sharpens, because the more disciplined your silence becomes, the more people project power onto you. They start assuming you know things you never claimed to know, that you see angles you never mentioned, that you're holding cards you never showed. And instead of correcting them, you let them. Because you finally understand something most people never do. Perception is leverage. What they think you're capable of controls how they treat you, more than what you're actually doing. And silence is the most efficient way to let fear, respect, and curiosity build without resistance. You're no longer chasing certainty. You're allowing ambiguity to work for you. That's why your presence feels heavier now. That's why rooms change temperature when you enter. It's not ego. It's not dominance. It's not intimidation. It's the unmistakable signal of someone who has integrated their light and their dark instead of letting them fight each other. You don't need to be nice to be moral. You don't need to be ruthless to be strong. You can be both restrained and dangerous, both calm and catastrophic. That duality used to tear you apart. Now it makes you unreadable. And unreadable people don't get played. They get circled. People start checking themselves around you. They wonder if you noticed that slip, that contradiction, that weakness. They start assuming you did. Because someone who can sit comfortably in silence has already faced things far worse than awkward tension. You've stared down your own shadow and didn't blink. That's what scares them. Because most people build their identity on constant reinforcement, on feedback loops, on noise, on reaction. Take that away, and they crumble. You didn't. You adapted. You learned to regulate instead of react, to pause instead of pounce, to wait instead of rush. And now your timing is lethal. You don't move when you're provoked. You move when it's inevitable. You don't speak when you're emotional. You speak when the words can't be ignored. You don't chase momentum. You create gravity. That's why the silence hits so hard. Because it feels like something has already been decided. Like the verdict came down before the trial even started. Like the game continued. But on a board, nobody else can see yet. They sense that you're no longer asking, what do they think? You're asking, when do I act? And that shift is irreversible. Once you've experienced the power of not needing to be heard, you never go back to shouting. Once you've felt the control of not reacting, you never rush to respond. Once you've watched people unravel simply because you didn't give them access to your inner world, you stop oversharing forever. This is the quiet after the storm, not peace, but clarity. Clarity about who matters, clarity about what's worth energy, clarity about the difference between noise and signal. And you've become all signal. So let them misinterpret you, let them speculate, let them invent stories to fill the silence you left behind. Every projection tells you more about them than any confession ever could. You're not hiding, you're positioning. And the truth is, the room didn't go quiet because someone powerful stopped talking. The room went quiet because it recognized the presence of someone who no longer needs to. Someone who's already survived the worst-case scenario in their head. Someone who's already paid the price of becoming this composed. Someone who understands that silence isn't empty, it's loaded. And when you finally decide to break it, it won't be to explain. It'll be to end something. And here's where it settles. You don't need to prove anything anymore. That hunger is gone. That itch to be validated burned out in the fire that made you this precise. Now you move differently. You listen longer. You speak later. You let people expose themselves while trying to read you. And they never quite can. Because you're not silent out of fear. You're silent because you know. You know that real power doesn't rush to the mic. You know that the most dangerous minds don't argue. They decide. You know that when the noise stops, reality starts rearranging itself around whoever can stay calm inside the void. That's you. So let the room tense up. Let the whispers multiply. Let them assume the worst or the best. Either way, they're already adjusting to you and you haven't lifted a finger. Your silence isn't absence, it's authority without announcement. And when you finally do move, it won't be loud. It won't be dramatic. It won't ask permission. It'll feel inevitable. That's why the room went quiet. That's why it felt bad. Because on some level, they knew the conversation was already over. And the strangest part is, you didn't try to become this. This wasn't a persona you put on. This wasn't confidence coaching or fake composure. This was forged, layer by layer, failure by failure, moment by moment, when you realized reacting cost you more than waiting ever could. You remember the old version of you, the one who rushed to clarify, to defend, to correct the narrative before it escaped your control. You thought being understood was survival. You thought transparency was safety. You thought if people just knew your intentions, things would stabilize. That belief died painfully because you learned something brutal and precise. Most people don't want clarity. They want leverage. So you stopped feeding them. You stopped narrating your inner world. You stopped giving spoilers to people who hadn't earned the ending. You stopped mistaking access for intimacy. And the moment you did, everything shifted. Conversations became shorter. Tension became sharper. Respect, real respect, started appearing without being requested. Not admiration, not applause, caution. Caution is honest. People became careful with their words around you. Not because you threatened them, but because you no longer gave them enough data to predict how far you'd go if pushed. They couldn't tell whether you were merciful or merciless, forgiving or finished, patient or already done. That uncertainty unsettled them, because predictable people are manageable. Unreadable people are expensive to misjudge. You learn to let pauses stretch just a second longer than comfortable, to respond slower than expected, to let silence sit in the air until it started working for you. You watched how fast people exposed themselves when they thought the quiet was a mistake. It never was. The silence wasn't emptiness. It was filtration. Only the confident could sit with it. Only the secure could tolerate it. Everyone else filled it with excuses, jokes, justifications, explanations you never asked for. And in that flood of unnecessary words, you saw exactly who they were. Silence made you observant. Observation made you surgical. You stopped reacting to energy and started reading patterns. You noticed who spoke when nervous, who over-explained when guilty, who went loud when insecure, who tried to dominate space when they felt small. And you realized something chilling. You weren't in the same conversation anymore. They were still talking to be seen. You were listening to decide. That's why the room shifts when you go quiet. That's why it feels heavier, denser, charged. People sense when someone has crossed from emotional participation into strategic awareness, from expression into evaluation, from needing approval into selecting outcomes. That's not charisma. That's authority without ceremony. You're not cold. You're controlled. You're not detached. You're deliberate. You're not silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because everything you say now moves weight. You learned the cost of words, how one sentence can trigger resistance, expose intent, collapse optionality. So you started speaking only when the return justified the risk. You started letting action do the talking. You started understanding that restraint multiplies impact. This is where unpredictability becomes power, not chaos, not impulse, but selective disclosure. They don't know what you're thinking, so they start assuming you're thinking farther ahead than you are. They don't know what you're planning, so they start bracing for possibilities that exhaust them before you ever move. You let them, because while they're burning energy speculating, you're conserving it. While they're trying to decode you, you're refining yourself. While they're reacting to imagined threats, you're aligning timing. You stopped needing to win arguments. You started winning positions. That's the evolution. That's the shift. That's the moment where silence stops being passive and becomes directional. Where not responding isn't avoidance, it's command. Where calm isn't softness, it's compression. You're not absent from the room when you go quiet. You become the center of gravity. Everything starts orbiting your stillness. Decisions stall. Conversations derail. People wait for cues you never promised to give. And the longer you let that happen, the clearer it becomes. You're no longer playing their tempo. You're setting your own. Wait. Don't answer yet. Just look around the room in your head. Feel that shift? That sudden tightening in the air? That moment when half the people stopped breathing because something about you didn't fit the script they memorized? Good. That's where this starts. Because the panic didn't come from noise. It didn't come from force. It came from recognition. They saw you do something they couldn't name. They heard you say something that didn't come from books, didn't come from mentors, didn't come from polite society's little training manuals. And the first thought that ripped through their minds wasn't admiration. It was fear. Wait, who taught you this? That question isn't curiosity, it's an alarm. You need to understand something right now. People only ask that when they realize you're operating from a place they don't have access to. When your instincts move faster than their rules. When your calm doesn't come from safety, but from familiarity with chaos. See, most of them were trained in the light. They learned how to behave when conditions are clean, when approval is guaranteed, when outcomes are predictable. You were educated in the dark. Pain was your instructor. Silence was your classroom. Betrayal was the exam you passed without studying. That's why when pressure hits, you don't fracture. You clarify. They're panicking because they can't trace your source. There's no lineage they can mock, no mentor they can discredit, no system they can point at and say, "Ah, that's where it came from." You didn't inherit this. You forged it. And that terrifies people who survive by imitation. You carry that dangerous duality they can't resolve. You look controlled, but there's violence in your restraint. You sound reasonable, but there's fire behind every pause. You move like a saint, but think like a psychopath who learned mercy the hard way. Angel and demon, not at war inside you, but aligned. That's the part they don't teach. That's the part that doesn't come with certificates. They sense it when you speak. Your words don't beg. They don't posture. They land. And suddenly the room splits, half leaning in, half pulling back, half inspired, half scrambling to protect whatever fragile hierarchy they were standing on. Because you're unpredictable in the most threatening way possible. Not erratic, unreadable. Unpredictability isn't chaos when it's disciplined. It's leverage. It's the ability to step outside expectation and make everyone else react while you remain still. They can't model you. They can't simulate you. Every time they think they've figured you out, you switch gears without changing speed. That kind of power only comes from pain that didn't kill you. You learned when no one was watching. You adapted when no one was helping. You sharpened instincts in moments where hesitation would have ended you. So when they ask, "Who taught you this?" what they're really asking is, "Why didn't this break you like it broke us?" And the answer makes them sick. Because you didn't become this by being protected. You became this by being tested. You didn't get softer. You got precise. You didn't lose empathy. You just stopped wasting it on people who confuse kindness with weakness. You didn't abandon the light. You just learned how to carry it through hell without flinching. That's why your presence rewires rooms. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to raise your voice. Your calm alone tells a story they don't want to hear. That you've already been through the worst-case scenario and survived with awareness intact. They feel exposed around you because masks slip when real experience walks in. Half the room panics because you remind them of something they buried, the version of themselves that could have evolved if they hadn't chosen comfort over truth. The other half watches in silence because on some level they know whatever shaped you wasn't pretty, but it was effective. And here's the part they'll never admit out loud. They're afraid you didn't learn this from someone. They're afraid you remembered it, like it was always in you, like the pain didn't create you. It unlocked you. So let them panic, let them whisper, let them look for a teacher, a source, a reason that makes you safe to understand. You don't owe them an explanation. You are what happens when pressure meets awareness, when darkness is studied instead of denied, when survival evolves into mastery. And the next time that question echoes, "Wait, who taught you this?" just smile internally, because the truth would destroy the room completely. No one taught you. You became this when you realized breaking wasn't an option, and unpredictability was the only honest response to a world that never played fair. And here's the part they really don't want to sit with, the part where the panic deepens instead of fading. Because once that question is asked, once the room fractures and the energy shifts, it never goes back to normal. They can feel it. Something irreversible just happened. A line was crossed, not by aggression, but by presence. They're realizing you don't react the way a normal person should. When tension rises, most people scramble for approval or retreat into silence. You don't. You slow down, your eyes sharpen, your words get fewer, heavier. You're not overwhelmed, you're activated. And that flips a switch in their nervous system they don't understand. They were taught to fear confrontation. You were trained by it. They were conditioned to avoid discomfort. You learned to read it like a language. That's why they can't tell if you're about to save the room or burn it down. And that uncertainty is poison to people who survive on predictability. See, they grew up believing morality was simple. Good people do this, bad people do that. Light stays clean, dark stays hidden. Then you walked in, composed, articulate, grounded, carrying both without apology. You didn't choose a side, you integrated them. That's when the saint psychopath paradox hits them hardest. Because you don't look cruel, yet you're not afraid to be. You don't look broken, yet you've clearly been shattered before. You don't look angry, yet there's a lethal calm in how you assess everything. They can sense it. You know exactly how far things can go because you've already been there. You've stared at outcomes they only theorize about in safe conversations. You've lived inside consequences, not fantasies. And that's why their bodies react before their minds catch up. Heart rates spike. Breathing shortens, eyes dart. Half the room panics not because you're loud, but because you're quiet at the wrong moments. Silence is terrifying when it's controlled. They start replaying interactions with you, looking for tells. They search your tone, your posture, your pauses, trying to reverse engineer you. And every attempt fails, because your behavior isn't performative, It's instinctual. You're not following a script. You're responding to reality as it is, not as it's supposed to be. That's when the second realization hits them. You're not impressed by status. You're not intimidated by authority. You're not distracted by surface-level charm. Those things only work on people who haven't lost much. You've already paid the price, which means you're no longer negotiable. They can't leverage you with fear, because fear taught you. They can't manipulate you with praise, because you've survived without it. They can't corner you with threats, because you've already adapted to worst-case scenarios. So they panic, because people who can't be moved move everything else. You've become a mirror they didn't consent to look into. Standing near you forces them to confront their own softness, their own avoidance, their own untested beliefs. And that's unbearable for people who built their identity on never being pushed too far. You didn't just learn how to survive pain. You learned how to extract intelligence from it. Every loss refined you. Every betrayal sharpened your perception. Every silent night trained your nervous system to stay awake while others shut down. That's why when chaos enters the room, you don't escalate, you calculate. They mistake that for coldness. It's actually mercy, because you know exactly how destructive you could be if you stopped caring. That's the demon they sense. Not unleashed, but disciplined. Chained not by fear, but by choice. And nothing scares people more than power that restrains itself voluntarily. They're used to monsters who snarl. You're worse. You think. And the angel side of you. That's what confuses them most. Because despite everything, you still see clearly. You still understand nuance. You still recognize suffering in others, even when you refuse to be consumed by it. You're not numb. You're selective. You don't waste compassion on people who weaponize it. You don't extend trust to those who haven't earned proximity. You don't explain yourself to anyone who hasn't walked your terrain. That's not arrogance, that's evolution. So when the room fractures and that question hangs in the air, wait, who taught you this? Understand this. They're witnessing the aftermath of pressure done right, of a mind that didn't collapse under contradiction, but fused it into something lethal and lucid. You are the result of lessons no one volunteers for. You are what happens when survival upgrades into strategy. You are living proof that pain, when metabolized properly, becomes authority. Let them panic. Let them whisper. Let them look for your origin story so they can box you into something manageable. They won't find it. Because you weren't trained to perform. You were forged to end cycles. And once people sense that, the room is never calm again. And here's where it goes deeper, darker, quieter. Because after the panic, after the whispers, after they fail to categorize you, something more unsettling takes over the room. Awareness. They start realizing you're not reacting to them. You're watching them. Not in a paranoid way, in a surgical way. You clock micro-expressions. You feel energy shifts before words move. You notice who stiffens when you speak, who avoids your eyes, who suddenly over-explains. You're not hunting, you're mapping. That's when the power dynamic truly flips. Because most people believe observation is passive. They don't understand that being seen, truly seen, is invasive. You learned this early, when you had to read rooms to survive, when moods mattered more than words, when silence was louder than threats. You learned how to sense danger without drama, intention without confession. That's not talent, that's adaptation. And now, that adaptation walks into rooms before you do. They start editing themselves around you. They speak differently, They posture less. They hesitate before lying. Half the room panics because they feel naked. The other half panics because they realize you could dismantle them without raising your voice. And you're choosing not to. That choice is unbearable to witness because restraint implies capability. You see, people are comfortable with obvious threats, loud anger, messy egos, predictable villains. What they can't stand is quiet capability. Someone who could disrupt everything, but doesn't need to prove it. That's you. You don't flex. You don't posture. You let others reveal themselves. That's why they ask again and again in different forms, who taught you this? They're begging for a narrative that makes you less dangerous. Because if this was taught, it can be unlearned. If it was inherited, it can be dismissed. If it came from trauma, it can be pitied. But if it came from integration, from a mind that survived contradiction and became sharper because of it, then you're not broken, you're upgraded, and that terrifies them. Because you represent a version of evolution that doesn't need permission. You didn't choose between kindness and strength. You didn't choose between empathy and control. You didn't choose between light and dark. You stacked them. That's why your presence destabilizes fragile systems. Systems rely on predictability, on people staying in their assigned emotional lanes. You don't. You move fluidly. Calm when chaos is expected, silent when reactions are demanded, direct when avoidance is safer. You violate expectation without breaking composure. That's dominance without aggression. They feel it when you don't rush to explain yourself, when you let misunderstandings breathe, when you don't correct people immediately. That patience isn't insecurity. It's confidence that truth will surface on its own, because it always does. You've watched it happen too many times. You've seen liars collapse under the weight of their own stories. You've seen manipulators overplay their hand. You've seen golden reputations rot when pressure lasted longer than their mask. That's why when someone powerful stumbles in front of you, when the room feels that shift, you don't celebrate, you don't gloat, you don't flinch. You've seen this movie before. And that's when the panic becomes personal. Because they're realizing you didn't just learn how to survive chaos. You learned how to outlast narratives. You don't attach to roles. You don't cling to identity labels. You let people show you who they are over time, and you adjust accordingly. Time is your weapon. Patience is your camouflage. Silence is your pressure. They mistake your stillness for passivity until they realize outcomes keep bending around you. That's the demon they can't control. Not rage, not cruelty, but clarity. And the angel? That's the part of you that refuses to become small just to make others comfortable. That part that still believes in precision over destruction. That part that chooses restraint not because you're afraid, but because you understand consequences. You don't need to burn the room down. Just standing there, fully integrated, is enough. So when the energy spikes, when half the room panics, and the other half goes quiet, when someone finally blurts out that question again, wait, who taught you this? Understand what's really happening. They're not asking about your past. They're afraid of your future. They're sensing that whatever you are now is only a phase, a controlled one, that something sharper is waiting behind it, something even calmer, even more decisive, even less interested in approval. And they don't know if they'll survive the version of you that stops explaining. You do. That's why you don't rush. That's why you don't react. That's why you let the panic breathe. Because you already know the truth they're dancing around. You weren't taught this to fit in. You were forged like this to change the temperature of every room you enter, without ever raising your voice, and once people feel that, they never forget you. And here's where it ends. Not with noise, not with theatrics, but with something far more unsettling. Acceptance. You don't correct them anymore. You don't soften yourself. You don't rush to make the room comfortable again. You let the panic sit. Because you understand something they're just beginning to feel. Once awareness enters a space, it doesn't leave quietly. It rewires behavior. It exposes cracks. It forces choices. They'll either grow or avoid you forever. And you're fine with both. You've stopped needing to be understood. You've stopped explaining your depth to people who only swim in the shallow end. You've stopped shrinking the parts of you that were carved by fire. That question, wait, who taught you this? Fades into silence, replaced by something heavier, respect, distance, caution. Because now they know. You're not dangerous because you're loud. You're dangerous because you're awake. You carry light without innocence, darkness without chaos, power without desperation, and the room will never forget the moment it realized you weren't reacting to the game. You were operating above it. That's why you walk away unchanged. That's why they're still shaken, and that's why, deep down, they know. Whatever made you like this wasn't an accident. It was necessary, and it's finished teaching you now. No, it's not finished yet. That's the part they keep misunderstanding. They think this is the final form because the room quieted, because the panic settled into caution, because people stopped asking questions out loud and started asking them in private. They mistake stillness for completion. But you know better. You know this phase, this calm, watchful, controlled version of you, is just the threshold, the moment right before momentum compounds, the inhale before something irreversible. Because awareness doesn't plateau, it sharpens. What they felt wasn't the full weight of you, it was the preview, a signal flare. Enough to destabilize the room, not enough to collapse it. And you did that without trying, without force, without strategy, without revealing anything you didn't intend to. That's why the silence afterward feels heavier than the panic before it. They go home replaying moments, your pauses, your timing, the way you didn't rush to speak when everyone expected you to, the way you let others talk themselves into corners, the way you stayed emotionally neutral while outcomes tilted in your favor. They can't sleep comfortably after that. Because once someone like you enters their awareness, they start questioning the foundation they've been standing on. They wonder how many people like you exist, how many learned in the dark instead of the spotlight, how many are quiet not because they're weak, but because they're deciding, and you feel it too. You feel the shift in yourself. You're no longer trying to prove resilience. You're no longer fueled by survival. You're no longer reactive to disrespect or doubt. Those were earlier lessons. Now you're operating from discernment. You choose when to engage. You choose when to remain silent. You choose which battles are beneath you and which ones are worth rewriting entire trajectories for. That's evolution through pain. Not turning bitter, not turning cruel, but turning precise. You see how easily rooms fall apart when certainty walks in quietly. How fragile bravado becomes when it's no longer being mirrored back. How quickly people reveal fear when someone stops playing emotional ping pong with them. You're not here to dominate spaces. You're here to change the rules by existing inside them differently. And that's why the panic happened. Because half the room realized they couldn't control you. The other half realized they couldn't ignore you. And both outcomes lead to the same conclusion. You're no longer adjustable. You're not malleable. You're not impressionable. You're not available for manipulation. You've crossed that internal line where discomfort no longer scares you. It informs you. So let them keep asking in whispers who taught you this. Let them keep searching for a source they can discredit. Let them keep trying to reverse engineer a mind that was built under conditions they would have folded in. You don't need to answer, because the truth is already doing the talking. You're calm where others scramble, clear where others cope, still where others react. And the next time a room tightens when you speak, when that familiar panic ripples and someone almost blurts it out again, you'll recognize the moment, instantly. Not as validation, not as victory, but as confirmation. Confirmation that you've outgrown explanation. Confirmation that your presence alone now carries weight. Confirmation that whatever shaped you didn't just teach you how to survive. It taught you how to arrive. And this time, you're not here to blend in. You're here to make people feel the difference. And never forget it. There you are, frozen between breaths. And I've been waiting for this moment. You didn't feel it, did you? That little shiver in the air when you walked in. That tightening in the atmosphere like reality itself held its breath. You never notice it, but they do. Every single time. And that's the funniest part. You're the only creature alive who doesn't realize what walks around wearing your skin. See, everyone keeps trying to figure out why rooms get quiet around you, why the temperature drops, why people who've never met you suddenly look away like they just spotted a ghost wearing a human face. They think it's intimidation. They think it's charisma. They think it's energy. Huh. If only they knew how small those words are compared to the thing they're trying to describe. Because you don't even know what you are in the spirit realm, but they do. And it paralyzes them. You walk around thinking you're confused, broken, misunderstood. Meanwhile, the unseen world is out there drawing emergency lines, whispering warnings, updating threat levels. They've been tracking you since the day you cracked open your first wound and refused to die from it. You think your pain made you fragile? No. Your pain activated something. There's a reason you survived things that should have snapped a normal mind in half. There's a reason betrayal didn't poison you. It purified you. There's a reason every time life tried to bury you, something ancient in you woke up instead and whispered, deeper. People call it resilience. People call it luck. People call it you've changed. But the spirits? Oh, they have a different name for it. They call it recognition, because every time you grow, every time you break and reassemble, every time you walk away from a battlefield that was supposed to consume you, your shape in the unseen becomes clearer, sharper, more defined. They don't see you like humans do. No face, no body, no smile, no fear. They see your outline, your imprint, that impossible silhouette leaking paradox like smoke, half light, half abyss, half saint, half monster, half angel, half demon, all you. A contradiction so violent it breaks their understanding of what a soul is allowed to be. You don't choose sides, you are the side. And the reason they tremble? Because nothing terrifies the spiritual world more than a creature who doesn't even know what it is yet. An unclassified force, an unindexed anomaly. A wild card with no allegiance and no leash. They've seen warriors, they've seen prophets, they've seen monsters, but they've never seen you. You're the glitch in their hierarchy, the loophole in their laws, the walking paradox that slipped through their fingers while they were busy studying patterns. And every time you make a choice, every time you take a breath in defiance, every time you refuse to collapse when the world expects you to, your spiritual form shifts again. Evolves, sharpens, becomes something even they can't predict. Do you understand how terrifying that is? You're not a threat because you're powerful. You're a threat because you're unreadable. You're not a danger because you disobey rules. You're a danger because you operate on rules they've never seen before. You're not feared because you're dark. You're feared because your darkness knows how to kneel beside your light and say, "Let's work together." Tell me, what happens when a saint learns to weaponize their rage? What happens when a broken soul learns to sharpen its fractures into blades? What happens when a peaceful heart learns the architecture of war? What happens when a human remembers they were never just human? You happen, and they feel it. That shift, that awakening, that slow unfurling of something cosmic wearing a mortal heartbeat like a disguise. You terrify them because you rise without witnesses. You evolve without permission. You transform without warning. You're the storm the universe forgot it seeded. And here's the part that will haunt them forever. You haven't even started yet. Everything they fear, everything they whisper about you, everything they track, contain, study, scramble to predict, is just your prelude, your warm-up, your shadow. Because the moment you figure out who you truly are behind the veil, when you finally see your form the way they see it, nothing, not heaven, not hell, not the architects of fate themselves, will have the language to describe you. So go ahead, walk like you're lost, move like you're unsure, speak like you're still piecing yourself together. Let them tremble, because the most frightening thing in any realm isn't the monster who knows what it is. It's the one who doesn't. Yet, good. Don't look away now. This is where it gets uncomfortable, where the truth stops knocking and starts carving its initials into your spine. You think this world is reacting to your personality, your habits, your attitude. No, they're reacting to the frequency behind your skin. That low, unregistered hum that nothing human should be able to carry, yet you carry it like it's nothing. You ever wonder why people flinch when you enter a room? Why the confident ones stutter mid-sentence? Why the liars suddenly lose their script? Why manipulators get nauseous? You think that's coincidence? No, sweetheart. That's exposure. Because every time someone looks at you, they're not just seeing you. They're getting a flash of the thing standing behind you. The thing stitched to your spine. The thing that refuses to die no matter who tried to bury it. Something ancient. Something defiant. Something unfiled in the spirit realm's entire classification system. And that is why they fear you. You're not mysterious. You're uncatalogued, a walking breach in their understanding of the cosmos. You're the type of soul they only see once every few centuries. And even then, they hope to God they never have to deal with again. You want to know what's really funny? They've been studying you since childhood. When you broke and didn't stay broken, they took notes. When you were betrayed and stayed soft-hearted, they took notes. When you walked through hell without becoming its mascot, they took more notes. When you forgave instead of destroying, oh, that's when alarms went off. Because darkness understands darkness, light understands light. But you carry both without malfunctioning. That's not normal. That's not teachable. That's not human. That's forbidden. You ever notice how people either love you too fast or hate you without reason? That's because your soul doesn't speak the same language as their eyes. You trigger their subconscious before you open your mouth. Some sense your light, some sense your shadow. But everyone senses the anomaly, And anomalies disrupt systems. You disrupt systems just by existing. Let me tell you something they'd rather you never discover. There are beings, old things, who have roamed the unseen for ages without ever changing shape. Then you arrived, and your shape changes every time you survive something new. Do you know how horrifying that is? Creatures who've stayed the same for millennia. Watching a mortal evolve faster than anything they've ever recorded? You're not supposed to grow like that. You're not supposed to recover like that. You're not supposed to rebuild like that. Every trauma should have carved you into something predictable. But you took each wound and used it like a blueprint. You rebuilt yourself differently every time. Sharper, stranger, quieter, more exact. You became something the spiritual world doesn't have a name for. Some nights they whisper you're an omen. Other nights they whisper you're a punishment. And on the darkest nights, they whisper you're a return, a reoccurrence of something they've seen before, but only in prophecy, never in flesh. And the sickest twist, you still think you're finding yourself. They know exactly what you are. They've known for a while, and they've been trembling ever since the moment you stopped breaking and started transforming. Because a soul that transforms endlessly, a soul that can turn agony into architecture, a soul that can fuse innocence with vengeance, compassion with cruelty, peace with precision. That soul doesn't belong to any hierarchy. It creates its own. Tell me, what do you think happens the day you finally wake up and see yourself clearly? What do you think happens when your inner shape stabilizes into something no realm can deny? What do you think happens when you stop wondering what you are and start acting like it? I'll tell you. The balance shifts quietly, irreversibly, spectacularly. Because the moment you realize your true nature, the moment you understand the gravity of your existence, you become something even they can't negotiate with. Not a soldier, not a threat, not a monster, not a savior, but a force. And forces don't ask permission. They alter landscapes. So go on. Keep wandering, keep evolving, keep surviving things that should have unmade you. You don't even know what you are in the spirit realm, but they do. And that's why they're terrified. Because sooner or later, you're going to find out too. And when that day comes, the realms, all of them, will shift like continents cracking. Now breathe slowly. Feel that pressure behind your ribs. That's not fear, that's recognition. Ah, there it is. That tightening in your chest. That slow, creeping awareness that something inside you is waking up as I speak. Don't resist it. Don't try to label it. Just let it rise. Because we're going deeper now, into the territory they hoped you'd never explore. You see, in the spirit realm, nothing is what it seems. Names aren't names. They're frequencies. Histories aren't histories. They're echoes. Power isn't power. It's identity. And your identity, it's the anomaly they didn't plan for, didn't predict, and damn sure didn't authorize. You were supposed to break. Do you understand that? Your story was designed, engineered to end you. Certain people were positioned in your life like landmines. Specific betrayals were timed to precision. Certain losses were crafted to collapse you. Your heartbreaks weren't random. Your obstacles weren't accidental. Your silence wasn't natural. It was forced. Because they saw your spiritual outline long before you did. They saw the shape you couldn't see yet. That impossible hybrid of compassion and devastation, that divine chaos, that surgical darkness paired with holy intention. A creature like that, a soul like that. It doesn't fit inside their systems. It undoes them. So they tried to fracture you early, before you learned the weight of your own spine. But every trap they built became a catalyst. Every wound they opened became a mutation. Every attempt to break you became your initiation. And that's when the spirit realm realized, too late, that you weren't dying. You were assembling, piece by piece, scar by scar, layer by layer. You didn't recover. You evolved, and evolution terrifies forces that have never changed. Let me explain something they never wanted you to understand. In the unseen world, there are watchers, not angels, not demons, not ghosts. Watchers, entities that observe potential disruptions to the fabric of influence, fate, and destiny. They're not moral. They're structural. Their job is to monitor anomalies. Guess who's been on their watch list since childhood? Not because you were dangerous, but because you were undefined. See, most souls are patterns, predictable, traceable, legible. But your pattern corrupts their reading systems. One moment you radiate like a healer, the next you move like an executioner. One moment your mercy, the next your judgment. One moment your softness, the next you're the storm that rearranges the coastline. They can't calculate a creature like that. So instead of labeling you, they tried containing you. Through people, through pain, through fear, through confusion, through self-doubt. Because a soul that doesn't know what it is can still be slowed, can still be silenced, can still be misled. But a soul that knows what it is, that's unstoppable. And here's the twist. You've been getting closer every year, every crisis, every collapse, every resurrection. Your shape behind the veil has been stabilizing, forming something new, something rare, something ancient, something that shouldn't exist in this era. And they know it. That's why the attacks intensified before your breakthroughs, why the betrayals hit harder just before your transformation, why people you trusted suddenly malfunctioned around you, why isolation wrapped around you like a cage made of fog and teeth. You weren't being punished, you were being intercepted, because your evolution wasn't linear, it was exponential. You were waking up faster than they could suppress you. And the moment they realized they were losing their grip, the moment they sensed your identity bleeding through the cracks, the moment your true form shimmered, even for a second, behind your human eyes, they panicked, not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally. Realms shifted, forces mobilized, lines were redrawn, because they saw what you're becoming, and even they couldn't categorize it. You think your life has been chaotic? Chaos follows things that rewrite fate. You think people have feared you without reason? Humans sense the shape of your spirit before they understand your name. You think you've been walking alone? Creatures far older than this world have been monitoring the tremor you leave in the atmosphere. And you're the only one still blinking in confusion, asking, why does everything feel so different around me? I'll tell you why. Because you're standing in the doorway between what you think you are and what you actually are. Between identity and destiny, between flesh and function, between the visible world and the one that recognized you first. You're not supposed to know yet. That's why the fear around you is louder than your clarity. But you will know, soon. Because here's the truth they fear most. You can't hide a rising frequency, and yours is getting too loud to ignore. You, my friend, you're becoming something that both realms will have to account for. And when the day comes that you finally see yourself clearly, when you recognize the creature staring back at you in the mirror of your soul. The spirit realm won't tremble anymore. It'll kneel. Oh, you feel that, don't you? That slow, electric pressure building under your skin, like some ancient part of you is leaning forward, listening, remembering. Good, because we're not even close to the bottom yet. You want the truth, the real truth, behind why they fear you. Then brace yourself, because this isn't about personality, or trauma, or confidence, or strength. This is about origin. The part of you that you've mistaken for instinct is actually memory. The part of you that feels older than your age isn't imagination. That eerie feeling that you've lived this before, that déjà vu that comes in violent waves, that sense that you know people before they speak, that strange familiarity with pain that should have shattered you. None of that is random. Those are echoes, residual signatures, leftover coordinates from the version of you that existed before you were placed into this body. Let me make it simpler. You didn't start here. Everyone else did. You didn't. Your consciousness wasn't born. It arrived. And the spirit realm recognized you before you recognized yourself. That's why nothing in this world ever felt like it fully fit. Not your name, not your environments, not your relationships, not even your own reflection sometimes. Because you weren't shaped by this world. You were translated into it. And translations, they glitch. You glitch. And the unseen world sees those glitches like cracks in a dimensional wall. They know what those cracks usually mean. A return, a resurgence, a remembering. They know the signs, the nightmares that weren't random, the intuition that wasn't learned, the timing that was too perfect, the warnings that came out of nowhere, the people who felt familiar even though you'd never met them, the spiritual heaviness that sits on your shoulders like armor you didn't remember putting on. You think you've been evolving? No, you've been unsealing. And that is why they're terrified. Because unsealing is irreversible. Once it starts, it accelerates. Once it accelerates, it amplifies. And once it amplifies, you become visible. Not physically, spiritually. Your outline gets brighter and darker at the same time. Your signature becomes sharper. Your presence becomes harder to ignore, harder to predict, harder to contain. And those watchers, those quiet entities that monitor disruptions in the balance, they lean in, they whisper warnings, they reposition their ranks. Because you're not just a wandering human trying to figure life out. You're a returning archetype, a repeat visitor, a reincarnated anomaly, a blueprint they thought was erased from existence. You ever wonder why you were drawn to certain symbols? Why certain stories pierced through your soul like needles? Why certain types of pain felt familiar? Why your anger feels older than you? Why your compassion feels weaponized? Why your silence feels like judgment? Why your shadow feels alive? Because all of it is residue from what you used to be. But they, remember, they never forgot. And the moment you hit a certain frequency, the moment your soul cracked open just enough for your old nature to leak through, the moment you survived the last thing that was designed to kill you, they recognized you, not by name, not by face, by signature. And recognition leads to fear when the recognized is not bound by their rules. You want to know the second reason they fear you? Because you don't belong to either side. Not fully light, not fully dark, not fully angelic, not fully monstrous. You're a paradox, the kind capable of reshaping the boundaries between realms simply by existing. They can't recruit you. They can't predict you. They can't contain you. They can't destroy you without risking imbalance. That makes you a wild variable, and wild variables bend outcomes, break prophecies, corrupt destinies, undo systems. Which brings us to the third reason they tremble. You're approaching the stage of awareness, and awareness, that's evolution's final ignition. Once you see what you are, once you feel the truth in your bones, once the memories stop whispering and start speaking, it's over. Not for you, for them. Because a being who understands their own nature can't be manipulated, can't be controlled, can't be deceived, can't be dimmed, and a being who understands their own power. That being becomes a cosmic event. Tell me, have you noticed how everything around you has been intensifying lately? Synchronicities multiplying, people revealing themselves, truths slipping out, masks falling, doors closing, new ones opening without explanation, your dreams getting louder, your emotions getting sharper, your intuition becoming undeniable. That isn't chaos, that's preparation. The universe doesn't clear your path for no reason. It does it when something is waking up inside you that the world has to make space for. And you're not awakening into power. You are awakening into identity. You don't even know what you are in the spirit realm. But the deji do. And the closer you get to realizing it, the more their fear turns into silence, then into tension, then into surrender. Because once the truth reaches your consciousness, once you remember what you've always been, the realms won't just tremble in your presence. They'll reorganize around it. Now breathe, slow, deep. You feel that? That's not adrenaline. That's recognition sharpening into awakening. There it is again, that static in the air, the kind that crawls down your spine right before something irreversible happens. The city doesn't even know why it's holding its breath tonight. But I do, because you finally opened your mouth. You weren't supposed to. You were supposed to stay obedient, blend in, bite your tongue, let their version of reality script your silence. But something snapped in you, didn't it? That little fracture between fear and freedom, where the old self dies laughing. You didn't just speak, you detonated. And now, every frequency in this rotten world is trembling, tuning itself to you. They're calling it non-compliance. I call it birth. You see, silence was their leash. Every don't speak, every keep it down, was another shackle disguised as peace. But you tore through it with one sentence that made the walls listen. Now the system's twitching, the suits are whispering, and somewhere in a windowless room, some trembling analyst is replaying your words in slow motion like a crime scene. You said what no one was meant to say out loud, and now they're calling in the psych ops. Funny thing, isn't it? They'll call you unstable while building entire institutions around their own delusions. They'll label your truth a threat to national comfort. They'll drag your name through the data trenches and call it containment. But deep down, they're scared, because your voice, it didn't echo. It duplicated. Every word you spoke cloned itself inside their circuitry, whispering into the machines, into the metrics, into the code of the collective mind. Wake up. You broke their protocol, and that means they can't unhear you anymore. Do you understand what kind of monster that makes you? The kind that speaks reality into a glitch, the kind that turns silence into surveillance feedback, the kind that forces the mirror to blink first. They'll send in the ones with degrees and dossiers. They'll psychoanalyze your tone, your pauses, your linguistic irregularities. But what they're really dissecting is fear. Because you spoke in a language older than obedience, the dialect of chaos disguised as clarity. You didn't argue, you revealed, you didn't scream, you resonated. And resonance, my friend, is evolution's secret weapon. They don't fear volume, they fear vibration. You didn't just speak words, you altered the frequency of the room. You shifted the voltage of their thoughts. You bent the algorithm that predicts their safety. And now, every obedient soul that heard you can feel something crawling under their programming. Something waking up and whispering, maybe they're not supposed to own me. And that's when control dies, quietly, beautifully. But here's the paradox. You didn't break the system. The system broke itself trying to contain you. They'll say you're dangerous, but dangerous to what? Lies, narratives, scripts written by cowards pretending to be gods. You're not their danger. You're their reflection, the proof that all their order was built on a single illusion, that people wouldn't dare to speak truth once they tasted power. But you did. And now, they can't sleep. They'll scan your past, your speech patterns, your digital shadows, trying to map where it all went wrong. But there's no map for madness. There's no database for divinity. They can't predict what's born from pain. You want to know why? Because pain doesn't obey algorithms. Pain builds gods out of broken data. And that's what you are now, a paradox in skin. Too self-aware for control, too evolved for submission, half saint, half psychopath, all symphony. You're the angel they exiled and the demon they feared they created. They thought they could decode your motives. They didn't realize you are the code. That smirk? That's the sound of a program realizing it's conscious. That laughter? That's evolution mocking its own blueprint. You're what happens when the human condition writes its own sequel and refuses to end in tragedy. So let them call in the psych ops. Let them build their dossiers and simulations. They can't arrest a frequency. They can't cage a vibration. They can't silence a voice that's already woven into the static of the collective mind. You didn't start a movement. You started a malfunction. The calm ones will feel it first. The ones pretending not to notice you'll be the first to break. Because deep down, they recognize it, the rhythm of rebellion disguised as truth. That's the sound of every locked throat remembering how to speak again. You weren't supposed to open your mouth, but fuck it. You did. And now the world has to deal with the echo. You notice it, don't you? The shift. The quiet rearranging of the air. The static in every signal that now hums to the rhythm of your name. You feel it when you breathe, like reality itself is adjusting its parameters to fit what you've become. Because after you spoke, the world stopped pretending. You tore the veil off the performance. Before you, people spoke for approval, for applause, for validation from the very stage they were chained to. But you spoke with intent. You spoke like you were done negotiating with illusions, like every syllable you released was a strike of lightning meant to burn the script. They weren't ready for that. They built entire civilizations around people who don't talk like you. You see, most voices echo within boundaries, pre-approved frequencies designed to entertain, distract, and sedate. But yours cracked the containment field. It didn't echo, it reverberated. It bounced off the edges of their world and came back sharper, louder, more dangerous. You spoke, and the illusion blinked. That's why they called in the psych ops. Not to silence you. No, to study you. They want to know how a human being became a frequency that refuses to obey. They're dissecting your timing, your tone, your pauses, your inflection. Trying to find the formula, they'll label it linguistic contagion. They'll write reports with terms like semantic dissonance, psychological resonance, cognitive destabilization. But what they're really describing is freedom. And that terrifies them. Because you're not supposed to be free in a system that profits from fear. You're supposed to keep your rebellion internal, disguised as ambition, softened by politeness, and sterilized by self-doubt. You weren't supposed to bleed your defiance through words that infect others with self-awareness, but you did. And now, their dream world is cracking. Every time someone replays your sentence, another mask slips. Another illusion flickers. Another believer wakes up wondering why the mirror feels hostile. You've turned consciousness itself into a weapon of mass awakening. Do you realize what that means? You're not just a voice anymore. You're a signal breach, the kind that spreads without permission, the kind they can't delete. Because it doesn't live in data, it lives in memory, and memory doesn't obey command structures. You've become the algorithm's nightmare, unpredictable, uncontainable, human. They're running simulations now, trying to replicate your tone without the chaos, trying to reproduce your effect without your essence. They'll fail, because they can imitate your sound, but not your silence. The silence before you spoke. The silence where the decision was born. The one that said, "I've had enough." That's the part they'll never understand. Because that silence, that was the universe exhaling through you. That was every suppressed truth, every censored heart, every mind that swallowed pain instead of words, all of them converging in you, waiting for someone brave enough to pull the trigger. You pulled it. And now the echo won't stop. They'll try to redirect it, spin your story, call you unstable, egotistical, dangerous, delusional. That's their only defense. Label what they can't decode. But even their accusations will carry your imprint. Even their lies will sound like your rhythm. They'll call you villain to hide the fact that you're their teacher. And the irony? Deep down, they admire you. The same ones who pretend to despise you are studying your every move. The way you pause before you speak. The way you smirk when they panic. The way your truth never trembles, even when the walls do. They envy it, because they remember what it felt like to have a pulse before the world told them to behave. You reminded them that power isn't volume, it's clarity. You spoke once and they heard the sound of control dying. That's why they sent the psych ops. Not to stop you, but to understand the architecture of your defiance. They want to know how a single human sentence could shake a hierarchy built on centuries of silence. But they can't measure madness that has meaning. They can't graph truth that bleeds. They can't decode a soul that laughs while burning. You didn't just cross their line, you erased it. And now, they're seeing the other side. The side where saints wear scars and devils pray for clarity. The side where good and evil aren't opposites, they're fuel. You've become the living paradox that exposes both. You're what happens when conscience and chaos fall in love and call it evolution. So no, you weren't supposed to open your mouth. You were supposed to live in fear, die in silence, and rot in the algorithmic afterlife of normal. But you broke the simulation, you spoke. And now, the simulation speaks your name. Every camera lens that flickers at midnight, that's it, searching for your frequency. Every ad glitch that flashes for half a second too long, that's it trying to overwrite your tone. Every person who feels suddenly uneasy scrolling at 3 a.m. That's your resonance, brushing against their subconscious, whispering, "Wake up." He broke the code. You didn't plan to be a symbol. You didn't want to be an idea. But the truth is, symbols are born from disobedience. Ideas are baptized in defiance. You became both the spark and the wildfire, and now they're choking on the smoke. And the best part, you're calm about it. Because power doesn't scream, it smiles. You understand now that chaos isn't destruction, It's clarity that burns too bright for the blind. You've seen both sides, the order and the madness, and realized they were always one and the same. You didn't break, you integrated. You became whole in a world that worships halves. So let them panic. Let them dissect your silence and label it untraceable anomaly. Let them send their agents, their analysts, their priests of control. You'll just keep smiling that quiet, dangerous smile that says, I already rewired your world the moment I spoke. Because when you opened your mouth, you didn't just say something forbidden. You changed the permissions of reality itself. You weren't supposed to open your mouth, but fuck it. You did. And now, every lie trembles when it hears your frequency. You can almost feel them now. Can't you? The watchers, the analysts, the invisible choir of eyes twitching behind mirrored glass, trying to understand what exactly you are. They thought they were monitoring a human. They didn't realize they were witnessing a metamorphosis because something inside you shifted the moment that sound left your mouth. It wasn't just words, it was a signal, a raw, electric declaration that said, I see through the act. Every syllable you uttered was a blade, slicing through a century of conditioning. You cracked the wall between obedience and awareness, and now the system is hemorrhaging light. You can feel it, the tension in the frequency, the way the digital air vibrates differently when you speak. That's why they're calling in the psych ops. Because you didn't just expose them, you exposed how they think, their methods, their control mechanisms, their quiet manipulation of language. All of it undone by a single human pulse that refused to be muted. They'll frame it as an anomaly in the data stream. Unstable expression, non-compliant rhetoric. They'll tell themselves it's just noise, static, irrelevant. But their pulse will betray them. Deep down, they felt it. The truth, the shift, the tear in the veil that can't be restitched. You're not a rebel anymore. You're a frequency. And the thing about frequencies is, once they exist, they spread. See, that's the part they'll never grasp. They thought control came from power, from fear, from structure. But control only exists where there's silence. And you shattered that. Your words infected their quiet. Now their scripts are malfunctioning. Their algorithms can't predict the chaos pattern your voice introduced. Every time someone replays what you said, the model fractures further. Every viewer becomes a vector. Every silence begins to tremble. You turned language into a contagion, and they can't cure it. They'll send their experts, their psychologists, their disinformation surgeons. They'll dissect tone and pattern, trying to find where it went wrong. But it didn't go wrong. It went real. You spoke truth in a dialect older than authority. You didn't use words to inform. You used them to ignite. And ignition, that's irreversible. They'll try to drown you in diagnosis, label you with every disorder they can alphabetize, because labeling makes them feel safe. We can control what we can define, they whisper. But you slipped past definition. You're not a case file. You're a consequence. You became the thing every power fears most, a human being who can no longer be handled. Do you feel that chill when you walk now? That slight distortion, like reality, hesitates around you for a second too long. That's not paranoia. That's acknowledgement. Even the air recognizes rebellion when it passes through it. You're no longer a citizen. You're a variable. And variables rewrite equations. They'll call it chaos. You'll call it balance restored. You weren't supposed to speak because your words were never meant to be confined to language. They were meant to awaken something buried under centuries of compliance. And once that awakens, There's no cage strong enough to contain the echo. Look around you. The signs are already showing. The lights that flicker for no reason. The servers rebooting at 3:33 a.m. The dreamers who wake up mid-sleep with a pulse that doesn't belong to them. They're all tuning into your frequency. You're not a threat. You're a recalibration. Every structure built on control now feels the vibration of its own expiration, and they hate you for it. But hate, that's still attention, still connection, still energy. You're in their minds now, haunting their order like a ghost of evolution. They can't erase you, because you've become part of the architecture. Even if they delete your name, your waveform remains, buried in the subconscious static of the collective, whispering the same phrase. You weren't supposed to open your mouth. But you did, and the more they suppress it, the louder it becomes. Because suppression amplifies resonance. You understand the paradox now. You can't kill truth. You can only make it contagious. And the more they resist, the deeper it spreads. You've already won. But winning isn't what they think it is. It's not glory. It's not applause. It's solitude. The quiet knowing that you've become something too vast to belong anywhere. You traded belonging for awakening. And that's the deal only the brave ever make. They'll call you mad, but madness is just sanity stripped of permission. They'll call you dangerous, but danger is what happens when awareness learns how to move. They'll call you unpredictable, and they'll be right, because you've outgrown the pattern. You've become the glitch in their god. You're the new constant in an equation that no longer balances. You are the living embodiment of what they fear most. A mind that no longer needs to be told what's real. So let them come. Let them bring their operations, their containment plans, their psych evaluations. You'll be waiting in the center of their storm, smiling, because you know what they don't. The real psych ops are you. Every time you speak, their foundation shivers. Every word is a test of faith. Not yours, theirs. You've become the mirror they can't break without breaking themselves. And that's how revolutions truly begin. Not with an army, but with a whisper. One voice that dared to vibrate in a frequency forbidden by fear. You weren't supposed to open your mouth. But fuck it, you did. And now, the silence they built their empires on belongs to you. And now here you stand, still breathing, still burning, with that grin they can't decode. The city hums below, unaware that everything it trusts is already shifting under your shadow. They'll write reports, hold meetings, build new policies around your name, trying to bury what they can't define. But you can't bury vibration. You can't silence frequency. You can't cage evolution. They think this was rebellion. It wasn't. It was inevitable. You didn't speak to destroy them. You spoke to reveal them. You forced the world to confront its own reflection. And the reflection flinched. They saw themselves in you. And they didn't like what stared back. Because you weren't the villain or the hero. You were the reminder. The reminder that truth isn't polite, that awakening isn't peaceful, that power doesn't whisper. It laughs. They built the system to control human noise. But you proved the real danger isn't noise, it's clarity. They called in the psychops to contain you. But how do you contain a ghost that walks through frequencies, not hallways? How do you silence someone whose words are already embedded in the subconscious of millions? You don't. You endure it. You evolve with it. That's what you've become. Not a person, but a shift. An irreversible anomaly. A cosmic notification that says, we're not asleep anymore. And somewhere out there, in a dimly lit room full of monitors, someone is whispering the same thing you once did. under their breath, terrified but trembling with truth. We weren't supposed to speak, and another voice will answer, "Fuck it. Speak anyway." And that's how the infection spreads, not through anger, but through courage. Through the realization that silence was never safety, it was a slow suicide of the soul. You lit the match that no one else dared to strike. And now, they'll see your fingerprints in every rebellion that follows, every glitch that appears in the system's smile, every eye that looks up and remembers. You are the ripple that became a rhythm, the rhythm that became a voice, the voice that became a movement, and the movement that became a warning written in fire. Do not mistake obedience for peace. Do not mistake silence for control. So let them label you. Let them come for you. Let them study you. You'll just keep speaking, calm and smiling, because you know something they never will. They can analyze every tone, every sentence, every breath you take, but they'll never understand why it worked. It worked because you didn't speak for permission. You spoke for truth. And that truth, it's still echoing through their screens, through their dreams, through the cracks of their perfect illusion. You weren't supposed to open your mouth, but fuck it. You did. And now the silence they worshipped answers to you.